From outside the Smith Center in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, this is TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm THI staff writer Jacob Turner, and alongside me, as it usually is, THI publisher Andrew Jones. Andrew, we're going to be talking about Carolina's basketball season, kind of talking about how it went down. This is the three things about how regarding the season and how everything kind of unfolded. It was a bizarre one, I know, for us to cover, and I'm sure for the fans to watch as well, just on how things kind of ended, how things started, and how things kind of went for the entire season as a whole. And I think the first thing we have to talk to in terms of how this 2019-2020 season went down is injuries. Ton of injuries on this team. I think pretty much everybody on this team that played significant minutes ended up missing some sort of game time due to injuries.
Except Christian Keeling.
Except for Christian Keeling. So credit to him for doing that.
And he struggled for 3 months trying to figure things out.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it kind of equaled out in some ways.
It kind of was par for the course.
Yeah, exactly. But injuries, AJ, I think you obviously a couple of seasons ago got to cover the football program when they had an unprecedented amount of injuries. That had to be crazy. But from a basketball perspective, I don't think I've ever seen at least the Carolina team get as many injuries as this team had this season. And when you start getting those injuries, you never can get everybody on the court at the same time. That definitely affects morale. I think morale took a big hit, which we'll touch on the second point as well, and some different aspects as well. But injuries this season, AJ, it was unprecedented, really.
For players that were expected to contribute to some degree, being part of the rotation, there were 101 missed games.
That's unbelievable.
The high for Roy at UNC previously was 2010, which was an injury-ravaged season. They ended up going to the NIT, and they lost. I think they had 67 games lost to injuries that year. 101 this year. All 5 starters missed at least one game. And the crazy thing is that after Thanksgiving, after they left the Bahamas at Thanksgiving, when they got into December, they had 4 different starting point guards for wins. They won with Cole Anthony, they won with Leaky Black, they won with Jeremiah Francis, and they won with KJ Smith, because they actually beat UCLA. KJ Smith started that game. That boom, exclamation mark.
Yeah, that's it.
End of conversation.
Yeah.
But it's not the end of the conversation. There were so many other effects of the injuries from just not having guys in the lineup. But think of the missed practice time. Yeah. Think of the missed opportunities for cohesion, for chemistry. And I think it was with Cole, that's where it was affected the most.
Yeah,
because Cole was a different kind of UNC player. Carolina typically doesn't have ball-dominant guards.
No,
guards.
He
was that way, so he had to adjust to the other 4. The other 4 had to adjust to him. If you go back and look at some of the periods during the season where the Tar Heels flared up a little bit, they were starting to do that even with some of the struggles in the Bahamas. They beat Oregon. Oregon's a really good team. If there was a tournament, would you have been surprised to see Oregon in Atlanta? No, I wouldn't have been surprised to see Oregon in Atlanta at all. They beat that team. Cole, B-Rob, Garrison, Armando's best game. They were all on the court that day, and they beat Oregon. But then they lose to Ohio State, lose to Virginia. Cole gets hurt, and then they were in trouble for a while. They had a couple wins before Anthony Harris got hurt. They beat UCLA, who won the Pac-12. They beat Yale, who would have been in the tournament. Okay, and then they had to rebuild again. Roy had to get him back again. He went through the process of KJ Smith, and then Francis starting, and then he went to Leakey. They had the double overtime loss at Blacksburg. Then they clobbered Miami, and then they won at State. And they looked like Carolina that night. And you think, wow, okay, well, Roy's getting these guys going again. And then Cole comes back, and they lose to BC. They lose 7 in a row. And then they started getting it going again. You know, they win those 3 straight games. I was up at Syracuse. They were awesome up there. They were really good at home against Wake Forest. They did some nice things against Duke, but they allowed 34 points in the last 11 minutes.
That's not
great against Virginia Tech, terrible against Syracuse. So they flared up a little bit, but they were never able to sustain anything because they were in a constant state of flux, even in Greensboro. What, the first game, was it Keeling got hurt and went through the tunnel? The next night, Baycott got hurt, went through the tunnel. If there was a statistic kept for most number of times a team had a guy run through the tunnel during the game,
they'd have to be up
because he got banged up, Carolina would have shattered the record this year.
Absolutely.
Injuries affected morale. I think the Harris injury was the one that affected it the most, because they were starting to play well. The kid gave them some vitality that few other players on the team in their composition really did, and I think it was one of those snake bit type things.
It was.
So the injuries were obviously devastating. I know this is Captain Obvious stuff here, But it affected more than just the missed games. It was the missed practice time, and I think it was the effect on their morale over time that really hurt them a lot and sunk them at times during the course of the year.
I think another big effect on morale was the buzzer beaters this year. I mean, Duke, Notre Dame, I guess BC. I mean, there's so many I can name. I'm not going to sit here and name them all. I'd be here all day. But the amount of games that Carolina lost, on last-second shots, and some of them were good looks. Some of them you're like, he couldn't hit that again if he tried. I mean, the Duke game kind of pops up in a lot of ways in that respect here at the Smith Center. But buzzer beaters, I think we talked about human nature a lot this season in a lot of our past videos, and I don't care what level of sports you play. You can be playing pickup basketball in the park. If you lose all these games because some guy's throwing up prayers and they're going in at the last second every time, it's going to get to a point where you're like, I don't even know if I really want to come out here and do this anymore because
it's not for me.
So buzzer beaters, AJ, unprecedented amount this season too.
You were with me in Blacksburg.
Yeah.
And Roy's press conference after they lost that game. Yep. If you could find it on our channel, the look of disbelief, and what he wanted to say, but he didn't say. The guy who scored the winning basket, Radford, for Virginia Tech, it was a double overtime game, and that was his only bucket.
It was the only bucket of the game.
And it won the game.
Kind of tells you all you need to know about the season right there.
That's it.
Yeah. What can you say?
That's his only bucket, and that was the buzzer beater in that game. That's kind of how the season went. One of the networks showed the first Duke game the other day, and I was got to get my sports fix. So I turned it on. I was watching it, and I'm still amazed that Trey Jones made that play work in regulation. And then I'm amazed at the evolution of events over the last 20 seconds of overtime. And again, you could carve out snippets of this season and say that encapsulates the whole thing. And there are a lot of them. And when you have a lot of them, that means it wasn't a good year.
No, absolutely
because
not.
They add up over time. And it's just like, if you're on a boat and you're out in the middle of the Chesapeake Bay and you keep adding crap onto your boat, it's like a wood boat, with the paddles and stuff, or rather.
Eventually
that sucker's going to sink.
Yeah, ain't no way around it, man.
And I think with this team, credit goes to them for having that 3-game winning streak.
Yeah, they kept battling.
Credit goes to them for going into Greensboro with the attitude they did and wiping out Virginia Tech the way they did. Of course, the next night was the opposite, but the fact that the Tar Heels found enough of those spurts late and didn't completely fold is a testament to the kids and a testament to the coaching staff, but it was too much.
Yeah.
It was insurmountable. It was too much, and that's why you end up going 14-19 as they did.
Yeah, we talked about the two things we just talked about with injuries and buzzer beaters. Morale obviously affected a lot by that, but if you just look back in the year, it just really seems like Carolina can never really get their feet on the ground. You can never get their feet set under them in a lot of ways. It's like taking a jump shot. If your feet aren't set, you're not going to make it a lot. And it's the same thing with the team. If your foundation isn't set, if you're not feeling good about yourself, you don't have the key parts there that you need to succeed. Those are always kind of in flux and in and out of the lineup or hurt or whatever, not playing well. It's hard to really get anything going, but it just seems like Carolina this season, no matter, like you said, they flared up at times, but it just never seemed like they could sustain that, never could really get the feet under them and really make a run. And, we said in the ACC tournament, obviously didn't go on to end in there. They started off so well and played so well against Virginia Tech, and then the next night they get blown out by Syracuse. And that kind of encapsulated the season as a whole, really.
If you follow Roy Williams' weekday press conferences, the ones we have usually on Fridays, you'll know that he always uses a golf reference at some point. Always. So in honor of Roy's weekday press
he'll like this. Hopefully he's watching this.
I'm going to use a golf reference here, and I'm not much of a golf guy. If you putt on one leg, you pick a leg up like a dog when you take them out, and you're trying to putt, you're not going to make the putt.
You're not going to make a lot of those.
I know it's probably a terrible analogy.
That's true, though.
I wanted to have a little fun with it and just kind of honor the golf. When we're in this building, we get golf stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And the great Tanner Zarzer, by the way, as I sidebar for a moment, when he was here doing radio, and he's now off to doing bigger and better things, when he was here doing radio, he used to look for that golf woman, because he's a big golf guy, played golf in college. He actually has a golf show on Sirius XM now. He and Roy had sort of a running thing going about the golf thing, so that's why I wanted to make the golf reference.
A ton of golf references this season.
Anyway, they couldn't get their feet going. If you go back to the press conference, the media day press conference here in October, Roy was already talking about injuries and about missed practice time. And then a couple weeks later, we get him in Charlotte for the ACC Operation Basketball. Same thing. Andrew Playtex missed this number of practices. Leaky. At that point, I think he said they had already missed, 9 guys had already missed significant practice time.
Yeah.
That was in the middle of October before they started playing games.
Started yet.
A couple weeks later, we come here for the first for the exhibition game against Winston-Salem State. First 6 minutes, B-Rob's off to a great start. Boom, goes down. Ankle injury.
Yep.
And then he misses everything up to when they he started playing in the Bahamas. They had 13 games this year in which B-Rob, Garrison Brooks, and Cole Anthony played.
Yep.
And 4 of them, one of them was coming off or going into an injury when they were playing together. So that's only 9 games.
It's unbelievable.
Those guys played.
It's unbelievable.
In which they were either not, they didn't get injured that game, or they weren't coming off an injury.
How do you expect to be successful?
Those are top 3 scorers. They're only double-figure
How do you
scores.
expect
So
to be successful
they never had 2 feet on the ground.
No.
They never did it any time during the course of the season. 14-19. You know, in hindsight, 14-19. If you would have told us all these things were going to occur back in September, said, "Okay, guys, look at this massive laundry list. It's like the length of the Declaration of Independence, right?
Literally.
You know, these are all the things that are going to go wrong this year. It would have taken about a half hour to read it, and you would have come to the conclusion this team's not going to win a game.
No.
Maybe Elon, maybe Gardner Webb.
No.
Good thing they had UNCW on the schedule.
Still sweat
That's
state,
about it.
I mean.
14-19. They had some pretty good wins. Man, carve out this season, put it over here. It's a blip on the radar in the grand scheme of things. They'll be back to normal pretty much next year. But what could go wrong did go wrong
this season.
And they could have put that Murphy's Law logo on their jersey and worn it with pride every game, because that's what this season was.
It really has been a crazy season, AJ. It's going to be interesting to see how this program bounces back next season. But like you mentioned, I think they will. Yeah. We'll go ahead in this video before this bus rolls up and completely blows your ears out. But for Jacob Turner, Andrew Jones, thank you guys for watching. We'll have a couple more videos running out. If you've enjoyed this one, be sure to like, be sure to share, and see you guys in the next one.
Here it goes. Hurry up.
Thanks, guys.